Good afternoon, everyone. I am so excited to see our auditorium, our Levitt auditorium this full. The phrase fan club came up in our small group chat here in the corner, and I have a feeling that this group represents two overlapping fan clubs, the Dale Jansen fan club and the Amy Worthen fan club. So anyway, yes. And we still have fans pouring into the auditorium. Welcome, come on down. My name is Kelly Baum, and I'm the John and Mary Papajohn Director and CEO of the Des Moines Art Center. Many thanks for joining us on this special day when we celebrate our good friend and honorary trustee, Dale Jansen. Dale passed away in February 2024, leaving behind family, friends, and a legacy of enlightened and generous philanthropy. Dale was the very definition of a philanthropist. A philanthrope is someone who loves people, someone who acts in the interest and for the good of other people. Dale exemplified philanthropy in many ways, not least through his decades of service to the Art Center and his gift via his estate of 65 prints and paintings by some of the most celebrated artists of the mid to late 20th century. It's altogether fitting that Amy Worthen, Curator Emerita of the Art Center, is with us today to share insights inspired by Dale's collection, a small portion of which is on view in the exhibition Life Mask, a celebration of gifts from the Dale Jansen Estate, organized by our Associate Curator, Dr. Ashton Cooper. And after our lecture today, you'll have the chance to explore this exhibition in our John Brady Print Gallery. Amy Worthen is a distinguished artist, scholar, and curator. She received her MA in printmaking from the University of Iowa in 1969, after which she taught art history at Drake University. Between 1974 and 1997, she practiced printmaking and worked as an independent scholar and curator of prints. In 1981, she co-founded the Art Center's Print Club, and in 1998, she was appointed curator at the Art Center, where she built a distinguished collection of prints and organized dozens of installations and exhibitions for the institution until her retirement in 2016. Amy is also, as all of you know, an accomplished artist whose prints are represented in many museum collections and have been featured in over 20 solo exhibitions. Before we launch into our main program, I want to thank the Art Center's Print Club. In addition to generously sponsoring Life Mask, the Art Center's Print Club has, over the course of the last 44 years, donated dozens of prints to our collection, commissioned incredible new prints from living artists, and supported our conservation efforts. They have been an integral part of the Art Center for 44 years. More generally, they have worked with our curators to expand knowledge about and appreciation for prints here in Des Moines, catalyzing the creation of collections like Dale Jansen's. That collection, part of which now resides in the Art Center. And so for all of their hard work over the last 44 years, for her incredible work on behalf of the Art Center, I thank every member of the Print Club. And I think they deserve an enormous round of applause. Many of you are here right now. We're able to organize exhibitions like Life Mask and gather in Levitt Auditorium for lectures like Amy's because of the legacy support of Anna K. Meredith and her family. We are able to invite guests into our galleries for free and offer a range of illuminating, mind-expanding programs at no charge, thanks to our members, our trustees, and honorary trustees, and also to grants from the Principal Foundation and Art Bridges Access for All. So now, for the main event, please join me in welcoming the great and distinguished Curator Emerita, Amy Worthen.
Thank you very much, Kelly, for your kind introduction. Thank you, Jill Featherstone, who invited me to present this talk. Congratulations to Ashton Cooper, organizer of the exhibition. I also want to acknowledge those who helped me prepare for the talk, and a very big thanks to Print Club for supporting the exhibition, hosting the reception, and honoring Dale. On June 22nd, 2024, Dale's family and friends gathered at the Art Center for a celebration of his life. Many of you were here, but I was not able to attend the event because I was at a meeting out of town. I did, however, contribute a pre-recorded video in which I recalled the way that our lives were linked, and I read a portion of my husband Tom's affectionate description of our being with Dale and his team on February 12th, 2005, in New York Central Park, when they erected Christo's project, The Gates. The Art Center has invited me to present a talk today about Dale as a collector in relationship to the Works in Life mask. And although Dale owned a collage by Christo, it was not part of the gift, nor did the artist make edition prints. So I will be leaving Christo's significance for Dale aside. Because Dale's biography is so beautifully written in his obituary, and it was reviewed at the memorial event, and I think maybe you've received copies of it as well, I will say only a little now about the chronology of his life. Born in 1938 in Manning, Iowa, Dale grew up on a cattle farm. As a boy, he discovered art at the Joslin Art Museum in Omaha. He earned his undergraduate and graduate degrees in dentistry at the University of Iowa, became a pediatric dentist, and lived for a time in Hawaii and California. In 1975, he settled in Des Moines. Ooh, okay. Dale became a tireless volunteer in support of the Art Center and this community. He collected contemporary prints. He grew into a quiet but effective leader, and he was a beloved friend of many. Today, I will share stories about some of the people involved in that adventure with him. I will show how works in Dale's print collection came out of revolutionary developments in the print world and how they connect with people, events, and artworks in Des Moines. The exhibition's title is taken from Bruce Naumann's 1981 lithograph. Wait a minute, here we go. Life mask. In her gallery guide essay, Ashton Cooper suggests possible meanings and allusions we can tease out of the words when we try to read the inverted and flipped letters. We can think of an impression of a lithostone or plate on paper, or a life mask in wax or plaster, or a death mask. After visiting the exhibition, I started thinking more about the print. I played with the image digitally, flipping it and mirroring it. One wants to read it properly, but part of the image is always upside down or backwards. And keep in mind that Naumann, if he had drawn directly on the lithostone, as it appears he did, he would have had to write the words backwards. In his artistic practice, Bruce Naumann is frequently deliberately irritating. I thought it might be interesting for us to consider Life Mask in conversation with other works by the artist in the Art Center's permanent collection that also involve wordplay and stacking, such as Raw War. And note the credit line, by the way, and Animal Pyramid, another one. I wondered, should we be thinking about the word mask as an allusion to hiding or disguise? What do you think the lithograph meant to Dale? The word print comes from the Latin word to press. This is art made under pressure. I will not spend a lot of time today giving technical explanations of relief, Is this on some kind of advance here? I don't know. Intaglio, planographic, or stencil processes, but I will show some blow-ups so that we can look carefully at some of the works in Dale's collection. Later, I hope you will go on a hunt for these details in the exhibition. Remember, we're not talking about photomechanical reproductions of works that an artist made in other media. These are works created by artists working independently or in collaboration with skilled artisans using printmaking processes. They are inked and printed one at a time. They are multiple originals. I hope you will take away from this afternoon an appreciation for the incredible variety of things that happen when ideas, images, ink, paper, and people under pressure meet. Whether in view in the galleries or in storage in drawers or screens in the vaults, many of the works in the Art Center's permanent collection had what I like to think of as prior lives. Prints, drawings, paintings, and sculptures lived with their owners in environments that were strikingly different from their new lives in museums. Here is a photograph of our John Singer Sargent portrait of the Paleron children as it was displayed in their home in Paris. It's usually at the Art Center, but it's currently on loan to the Metropolitan Museum of Art for the Sargent in Paris show. Here are Isabel Bishop, Kata Kolvitz, and Gabriella Munter's work in Louise Noun's last apartment at the Iowa Senior Life Center. These provenance photographs are precious evidence of the prior lives of artworks. Dale owned nearly 200 works of art on paper that he acquired by purchase or that he received as gift. He also owned ceramics, sculpture, and modernist furniture. His was a collection in motion, up on the walls, moved from room to room, stored in the dark in boxes under beds. Thanks to a 2002 magazine photo shoot, as well as photos taken by friends at gatherings held at Dale's house, we have ample documentation of his collection in situ. So today I will show you lots of photographs of Dale's collection as he lived with it. Here, for example, is Robert Rauschenberg's Test Stone No. 6, Blue Cloud, and Jasper John's Evian on the left in the print gallery, and the same prints in Dale's house. Here's the tiny Richard Tuttle etching in the show, the D, hanging in his dining room at a print club lunch for Philida Barlow with Stephen Exel. Here are the 15 Diebenkorns on the wall, with me blowing out a candle on a cupcake at a birthday party he hosted. After Dale's death, his estate divided the collection between the Des Moines Art Center, 65 works, and the University of Iowa's Stanley Museum of Art, 93 works. Why such a disparity in numbers? One reason is that Dale's collection was much more in line with what the Art Center had been collecting and exhibiting. In a few cases, Dale's prints were duplicates of works in the Art Centers that the Art Center already owned. And in the case of several artists, the Stanley had no examples of the work. And the Stanley, understandably, received all of Print Club's commissioned prints. The Life Mask exhibition is, therefore, a selection of a selection. It gives but a partial glimpse of the total, but offers a promise of more to see in the future. What was it like here in 1975 when Dale moved to Des Moines? How did Dale become involved in the Art Center and print collecting? Jim Dimitrian had arrived as director of the Des Moines Art Center in 1969. Previously, he served as director of the Pasadena Art Museum. He brought a fresh California perspective to Iowa, completely revolutionizing Des Moines' awareness of contemporary art, which previously had looked to the East Coast and European art scenes. The year Dale moved to Des Moines, the Art Center purchased California abstractionist Richard Diebenkorn's Ocean Park number 70 of 1974. This acquisition was considered so important that it was reproduced on the cover of the Art Center's first permanent collection catalog, which I have here. Serendipitously for print collectors, at an earlier moment in his career, Demetrian had worked in Los Angeles as curator for the Tamarind Lithography Print Workshop. He was enthusiastic about and had a real understanding of both contemporary and old master prints. In the 1970s, the Art Center's architectural footprint was much smaller than it is today. The Saranen designed museum and education wings and the IMK wings existed, but the Meyer Wing and Museum Services Center had not yet been built. There was no site-specific or land art in Greenwood Park, no downtown branch at Wells Fargo, and no Papa John Sculpture Park. Looking at Saranen's 1940s design for the Art Center's John Brady Gallery for the display of small matted prints, we can appreciate how much prints changed in the following decades. It's still challenging to install larger prints created since the 1960s in the Saranen Gallery. Compared to now, the Art Center had many fewer staff members. The director and assistant director, Peggy Patrick, did all the art-related work. Jim and Peggy were supported by a secretary, development and membership office, an art librarian, art educators, a store manager, and maintenance workers who also did installation and preparation and guards. Art Center volunteers had far more of a hands-on role and responsibilities than today. Members Council, which met monthly for lunch, did much of the public-facing work, such as hosting exhibitions. They organized the vast undertaking that was Art in the Park in Greenwood Park. And they ran, and this is a newer photograph, of the Arts and Ends sales that raised money for the art library. They were a talent pool from which many trustees were drawn. Soon after Dale arrived in Des Moines, and do you see Dale? He's in the photograph there. He joined Members Council and became close to Peggy, who oversaw the group. Over his many years of volunteering in Members Council, Print Club, Art Noir, Contemporary Collectors, and Salon 4700, and later as a trustee, Dale found purpose in his family of friends. Once the Meyer Wing was opened in 1985, more professional staff was needed to run the Art Center's operations. Many volunteer functions became professionalized, and volunteers' relationships to the institution changed. Jim Demetrian's primary mission was to acquire first-rate contemporary works for the museum and organize landmark exhibitions that brought the Art Center international recognition. He also wisely collected contemporary private collecting in Des Moines. He knew that one day, many works bought by private collectors would come to the Art Center. He advised private collectors, including Louise Noun, John and Mary Papajohn, Jackie and Mike Blank, and Lois and Lou Fingerman, seen here with Dale listening in the background, alerting them to works on the market. He organized Director's Choice exhibitions in the main gallery. These were exhibitions that brought work from reliable dealers that he had already vetted, works that ordinary people could acquire. In a 2012 interview, Dale recalled Jim's bringing, quote, prints and drawings from galleries all around that were available for purchase, close quote, as the inspiration to begin collecting. The Art Center published a few prints itself, including Klaus Oldenburg's lithograph, Coffee Cup, 1973. Jim organized Iowa Collects exhibitions featuring works in private collections throughout the state, presenting these Iowa collectors as role models. It was his way of telling people in Des Moines they had agency, that they too could collect art. In those years, the print world was in glorious ferment. Prints could be made by artist printmakers who created their own blocks, plates, and stones, printed them, and self-published small editions. But the big news was collaborative printmaking. Publishers, including Brooke Alexander, Petersburg Press, and Pace Prints, brought painters and sculptors who did not necessarily have any experience in printmaking, together with a new generation of printers who are often artists who sacrificed their own careers to become printers for others, to work on highly generative collaborations. Let's go like this. Okay, this is good. Funded by publishers, artists began to create prints at presses such as ULAE, Tamarind, Crown Point Press, Gemini, GEL, and Cirrus. Dale's collection includes works printed many of the great lithography and etching printers, some of whose chops are visible on the prints, such as this one by Aldo Kromelink. Working with Jack Lemmon in Chicago at Landfall Press, Philip Perlstein drew in a traditional manner with grease crayons directly on litho stones. This is not a drawing. You are looking at a print. Each color area was drawn separately in black litho crayon, but stones can be printed in any color in register. Working with Catherine Brown at Crown Point Press in San Francisco, Richard Diebenkorn scratched his formidable dry points and etched lines into metal plates. It's so interesting to me how Catherine printed Diebenkorn's 41 etchings and dry points, leaving much plate tone and ragged, beveled edges. She printed these long before Crown Point Press became known, almost notorious, for its exceptionally cleanly printed and tour de force intaglio printing. During the years when minimalism was ascendant, intaglio printers and collectors debated about whether to leave plate tone or to wipe the plate clean as a calling card. And so here, for comparison, is another Crown Point Press. This is Tom Marioni's etching, which was published by Crown Point Press in 2002, that Print Club gave to the Art Center in 2015. You can see the difference of how absolutely cleanly wiped that is. Painter and sculptor Robert Rauschenberg worked with printers who helped artists realize their adventurous visions. Printers including Ken Tyler at Gemini GEL. And James Rosenquist worked with lithography printer Maurice Sanchez at Derrière l'Étoile. Sometimes unacknowledged block cutters and printers made color separations from watercolors or drawings, cut the blocks, and printed them in the name of the artist. When I first saw this Robert Cottingham print labeled a woodcut, this is one on the left, I could not believe my eyes. Compare it to Jim Dine's woodcut bathrobe, which exalts the wood grain. Doing a little research, I discovered that it was Carl Heckscher who was the person who actually cut the blocks and printed Robert Cottingham's Night. This print, by the way, is a sly homage to Edward Hopper's Nighthawks at the Art Institute of Chicago. And underneath you see night, and then do you see a little bit of the word hawks down at the bottom to the right? Editions were sometimes printed on exotic papers, like the paper with lustrous fibrous inclusions in Jim Dine's woodcut bathrobe. And prints now were often framed instead of matted. They were framed floating to show a handmade paper's deckled edge. Wet paper pulp became a semi-print medium, something new to explore. Historically, relief blocks, intaglio plates, and lithograph stones and stencils were printed in large, unlimited numbers. But in the second half of the 20th century, limiting the number of prints in an edition to artificially create rarity became the norm in the print market. In the 1970s, notations began to regularly appear on edition prints. declaring information but augmenting the mystique so that print inscriptions needed demystification. We see prints pencil signed by artists, fractional editioning numbers. Here, this is 66 out of an edition of 75. We also see indications such as PP, which means printer's proofs, BAT, the French bon à tirer, which is the print the artist approved, and then the edition would all match that, or RTP, we see right to print. Blind stamp printer's chops. This is the chop of Maurice Sanchez, and publishers' embossed logos. That's Gemini's logo there at the bottom of the Lichtenstein. Well, how did people in Des Moines buy prints in the 1970s and 80s? In those years, a collector could see contemporary published prints downtown at Percival Gallery. Patricia Donhow did shows in her home selling prints brought in by Plunkett Gallery. Jan's Gallery, renamed Olson Larson, and Hamilton Williams Gallery showed work by Midwest artists. Itinerant dealers and publishers' representatives stopped in Des Moines with regular visits to the printmaking studios at Drake University. Printed dealer and auction catalogs arrived in the mail. Otherwise, one had to travel to New York, Chicago, the West Coast, or abroad to buy contemporary and old master prints. In 1980, Dale bought his first print at Percival Galleries. Frank Stella's Polar Coordinates for Ronnie Peterson one, printed that same year, 1980. A lithograph and screen print published by the Petersburg Press. That same year, Dick Ward of Newton, John Huseby of Ames, and I, all three of us collectors of old master prints, realized that there were people in central Iowa who might enjoy belonging to a museum print club. So we presented a proposal to Jim Demetrian. He supported the idea and obtained the trustees' approval. The Des Moines Art Center Print Club would be the first Art Center membership organization to have a medium as its principal focus. And this was John Huseby's design for the first logo. 25 people came to their first organizational meeting. Dale joined as a charter member and served as the first treasurer. Dale relished and took full advantage of the myriad opportunities Print Club provided for seeing and learning about prints, collecting art, supporting the Art Center, and making friends. Print Club records reflect Dale's involvement in board service over the years. In 1984, we see that he hosted a program on monotypes at his dental office in 2900 University Avenue in West Des Moines, where his collection was then displayed. Print Club board meeting minutes dated 1985 note that he left Des Moines precipitously. He does not appear on a Print Club roster again until 1987, but from then on, he participated continuously and served in every conceivable role. And here are just some Print Club shots. And then here is, with the arrow, you can see there's this kind of gap for a couple of years where Dale vanishes. Then he came back. For many years, he served as chair of the commissioned print program, enabling many people, and I'm sure many of you among them, to begin collecting prints by wonderful artists. Now, let's jump back to 1983, when George Schelling, a private itinerant print dealer based in St. Louis, doing business as Signet Arts, enters the scene. George would prove central to the formation of Dale's collection. A few months ago, I phoned George to find out how he was doing. I wanted to ask him questions that I had never thought to ask before. I wanted to do a deep dive into his history. We talked for an hour and a half and could have kept going longer. George was born in Pacific, Missouri in 1945. When he was 8, his family moved to South St. Louis. While attending college for 3 semesters in Springfield, Missouri, he became interested in art and philosophy. He transferred to the University of Missouri, where he majored in psychology, but dropped out before graduating. He lived in Madison, Wisconsin for a while. Visiting a friend in New York, college friend in New York, he went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. There he was deeply affected by seeing Cézanne's Bathers of 1874-75. He told me it was then that he came to understand that art was philosophy in visual form. George returned to St. Louis and married. He needed a job. He saw an ad in the paper for a medical technician position in ophthalmology at Barnes Hospital. That work became his day job. He started attending some of the traveling art shows that came to St. Louis and began buying art. He thought, I would like to do this, buy art and sell to friends. Taking his own ideas seriously, he tried to learn and read everything: print collector's newsletter, Art in America, auction catalogs. He wrote to the prominent New York gallerist and print publisher, Brooke Alexander, who represented a galaxy of prominent artists. George asked, how does this work? Alexander replied, I have the works, you send me the money. Eventually, George was able to carry prints on consignment from Brooke Alexander. He got to know most of the dealers and printers, ULAE, Gemini, Jack Lemmon, Maurice Sanchez, Harlan and Weaver, Jude Donnet, and publishers such as Pace, Cirrus, Crown Point, and Petersburg Press. George started going on the road with a Chevette full of art. His first ever museum call was at the Toledo Art Museum, where he successfully sold some prints. On another road trip, he made a cold call to the Des Moines Art Center. Peggy Patrick took the call, and she made an appointment with him. She was impressed by what she saw and asked Jim Demetrium to come down and take a look. Jim bought this Robert Longo lithograph, Mark, from his Men in the City series for the Art Center. Then Jim phoned me, it was Amy, saying he thought our new print club members would be interested. My 1982 calendar shows the date was September 28th. You can see with a little other family stuff going on. I made some phone calls and organized an impromptu viewing at my house that evening. George recalls that Dale was not part of that first group, but his first visit to Des Moines was successful, so George started to come to Des Moines every year. In 1983, George's showings moved to Olson Larson Galleries and later also to Mark Holub's Art House Gallery. The first work that Dale bought from George was Wayne Thiebaud's Can of Sardines, 1982, when he still lived in an apartment on Ingersoll. That print is now at the University of Iowa. In 1987, after Dale returned to Des Moines and moved into his house at 317 59th Street, George began to show portfolios at his house. Let me describe the scene. We'd receive a phone call from Dale. George is coming. For 3 days, the dealer will be in Des Moines to show prints. Because insanely, I never thought to photograph something we thought would go on forever, I ask you to imagine this casually dressed, slightly chubby, middle-aged man with dark hair and a mustache. And here, this is the room, but this is a photo. Actually, that's Ren Fleming and my granddaughter there, but this is the room that this was happening. So I ask you to imagine this casually dressed, slightly chubby, middle-aged man with dark hair and a mustache, sparkling eyes, and an explosive laugh showing us prints. 6 or 10 giant floppy portfolios that miraculously fit in George's car for the trip from St. Louis to Des Moines lie about the sunlit back room in Dale's house. In this marvel of contemporary furniture, plants, ceramics, framed art on the walls, old friends float in or out on their own or in small groups for what became a beloved annual communal ritual of looking at George's prints. One by one, George lifts one of the immaculate lithographs, etchings, woodcuts, and holds it up for us to see. He tells us something about this artist, the series, the printer. Then he gently lays the print down and turns to the next one. No one else touches the prints. They are perfect. It will take an hour or more to go through them. People come and go. He patiently shows the prints again and again. Offside, someone will ask him a price or put a hold on a piece. Over the course of his visit, several collectors will acquire works for their private collections. Someday, prints George first brought to Des Moines will enter museum collections. So what did George sell? Signet Arts was laser focused on prints made during the 70s to early 2000s, mostly by American artists working on presses at the East Coast, West Coast, and Chicago. George preferred lithographs, etchings, and woodblock prints that revealed the gesture of the artist's hand. Come to think of it, so did Dale. In his profession as a dentist, he worked with his hands and eyes. At home, he built things. He was fearless, getting up on ladders. And in his volunteer work, he always lent a hand, literally. Here we see him preparing print club commission print folders. Here, erecting one of Christo's gates. George sold prints produced by established and emerging artists working in collaboration with great printers at innovative workshops. He told me, I never sold stuff I didn't like. Over the years, though, he still carried some prints on consignment. He owned most of his stock outright. He knew his material well. He was incredibly rigorous about selection, condition, and care of the work he carried. Dale built his collection one purchase at a time. He chose prints that appealed to his evolving taste, curiosity, and confidence. He understood intuitively that comparison and contrast of styles and media help you to see more. Dale said in that 2012 interview that he liked edgy work. When his house could no longer contain what he bought, he added the spectacularly high-ceilinged room to the back of the house. Dale was media curious, open to acquiring works in all print techniques, as well as hybrids made by artists and printers who smashed through traditional barriers. Although most of the works in the exhibition are straightforward relief, intaglio, planographic, or stencil processes, you'll also see lithography combined with woodcut. Here, the black is lithography and the wood grain things are woodcut. Lithography with screen print, lithography with collage, and lithography with embossing. Many of his prints are images of water. And I didn't know how well this is drops, whether you can see this or not, by Ed Ruchet. So I've also another print in the Art Center's collection by Ruchet, which you can see a bit better. Muse. Anyway, this is with bubbles and puddles and splashes, like this Pat Steer. There's a lot of darkness. There are a few paper pulp pieces, images born in a water slurry. When I visited the Life Mask exhibition recently, the exceptionally deep relief of German wood sculptor Stephen Balkenhol's print stopped me in my tracks. Reading the label, I wondered, how could this paper pulp piece, also be an aquatint? I didn't even know that he made prints. I did a little research and discovered the print was made with a process involving casting paper pulp onto a painted relief surface, wet, and they call that aqua gravure. I'd never heard of this process before. So I watched a video from a workshop in France that specializes in this process, and I thought might be interested, not in the video, but I made a few screenshots. So here's the paper pulp being collected, cast into a sheet of paper. And then here's this is not Balkenhol. This is another artist, but anyway, the process is the same. So you see they're actually painting deep into the relief. And then the relief, the painted relief, is put down on that sheet of handmade paper, and it's put under enormous pressure. So that's aquagravure. So I surmised that along the way, someone had mistranscribed the word aquagravure to aquatint. I also realized that Dale must have become interested in Balkenhol's work because our friend, curator Neil Ben-Ezra, had organized a show of Balkenhol's sculpture at the Hirshhorn. Neil had been Jim Dimitrian's curator in Des Moines. And here I think you can see the way that the paper pulp had been formed into this relief print. Dale embarked on a quest to collect as many prints as he could of Richard Diebenkorn's black and white 41 etchings and dry point series. The painter made these in 1964 and 65 when he was still a figurative artist. But with their flattening of form, diagonals, and increasing abstraction, these etchings, aquatints, and dry points prefigure the Art Center's Great Ocean Park No. 70 painting. The etchings were printed by Catherine herself in the early years of Crown Point Press in these kind of sloppy, plate tone printings, in editions of 25 prints each. They're quite rare today. And the 15 prints Dale and George succeeded in finding are now at the Art Center. George was not and is not interested in keeping up with the latest trends in art. If you think about it, although the prints in Dale's collection still feel edgy and contemporary, most were made in the 1960s to early 2000s, from 55 to 20 years ago. If contemporary art means the art of one's time, this was the art of Dale and George's prime years. They're messages from an analog past in which George still happily lives. George is not interested in computer-aided printing. He's never adapted to cell phones, computers, no website, no email. I don't know how he's going to be able to see this talk. On the other hand, Dale did own digitally printed works or computer-aided works. These two small-town Midwestern boys who studied, moved to the city, shared parallel professional experiences, eyes, teeth, and fell in love with art, became great friends. With George's wife, Terry, they often traveled together, meeting up in various places in the world, or they vacationed together on the island of Carriacou in the Caribbean. For nearly 40 years, George Schelling brought prints to Des Moines collectors. His last visit that I have noted in my calendar was August 2022. Now, I cannot neglect at least mentioning two friends who were closely connected to Dale, his print world, and his life. Des Moines Art Center curator Deborah Leviton, and Jerry Hastings, president of Print Club from 2008 to 2012, as well as Barbara Robinette Moss. Dale built a collection primarily focusing on art made during the portentous decades in printmaking by artists who plunged into the seas of collaborative printmaking. And although Dale bought many of these works from George, he also bought works from other dealers too. A visitor to the present exhibition should not conclude that Dale's artists were only canonical, national, and international male art stars. He owned works by Louise Bourgeois, Leslie Dill, Julie Meritou, Susan Rothenberg, and Kiki Smith, as well as by all the women who made Print Club commission prints, and he also bought prints from his artist friends. His friend Barbara Robinette Moss's three prints, Quest, Eva, and Svelte, are gifts from Dale's estate to the Art Center. Although they're not included in Life Mask, I would like to tell you about Barbara and her prints because I think this story is emblematic of how Dale's collection and his life flowed together. Barbara was born, and I'm going to back up here. Barbara was born in 1954 in Alabama to an astonishingly brave mother and a violent alcoholic father. She and her 7 siblings grew up dirt poor. Thanks to her astonishing grit and great gifts, Barbara managed to transcend a truly horrific and tormented childhood. In 1984, she underwent complete facial reconstruction surgery to correct congenital deformities. Somehow, she got out of Alabama and pursued her dream of attending the Ringling Museum Art School in Florida. To earn money, she worked as a dental hygienist. In 1988, she came to Des Moines to do graduate study in printmaking with Richard Black at Drake University. Black was another founding member of Print Club. He created our second commissioned print in 1992. Barbara made prints and wrote stories. She supported herself and her son by working as a dental hygienist in Dale's pediatric dental office. She joined the Des Moines Art Center Print Club. Dale and Barbara were colleagues, friends, and fellow print enthusiasts. These 3 prints, Quest, Eva, and Svelte, of the 5 he bought from her, these 3 are now in the Art Center. She slashed and printed corrugated cardboard, an art material that's the very incarnation of poverty. These 5-foot-high, black and white expressionist images are tall and slim, like the artist herself. The jagged white lines feel like wounds. They evoke her father's harrowing violence and the hatefulness of men who wanted to make love to her with a bag over her head. Her yearning for beauty and hope of salvation through the surgeon's knife. Barbara's memoirs, Change Me into Zeus's Daughter of 1999 and Fierce, 2004, recount her suffering and redemption through art. She eventually moved to Iowa City, married, and moved again to Kansas City. She became widely recognized as a writer. Barbara died from cancer in 2008. It is so good to have Quest, Eva, and Svelte enter our collection, thanks to Dale's gift. After his retirement from dentistry in 2000, Dale worked for several years at Projects, Contemporary Furniture, in Des Moines East Village, where he could indulge in his love of contemporary furniture. He traveled a great deal. He worked on Christo's projects in New York and California and New York. A consummate host, he delighted his friends at dinners featuring his superb cooking and wine collection. Dale worked regularly at his precinct as an elections poll watcher. He became a trustee of the Edmondson Art Foundation and served on the Acquisitions Committee. He volunteered in the Registrar's Archives. He joined the board of the Des Moines Public Art Foundation. He underwent several surgeries and heroically battled cancer. I understand that Life Mask was a late print acquisition that he bought online in 2023. Individual collectors like Dale have much more flexibilities than museums do. They can buy spontaneously from artists, galleries, publishers, and private dealers, and at auction. They can sell back and trade up for a better impression. They can give away or donate works during their lifetime. At the end, they must decide whether to leave their collection to educational and public institutions or to personal heirs, or they could leave directions for everything to be sold so that the works return to circulation on the art market, giving new collectors the opportunity to own them. He understood that a private collection was ephemeral. During the last decade of his life, Dale tried to work out where his collection would go. Although he was still deeply involved in the Art Center as a trustee and honorary trustee, he felt that the Art Center had somehow drifted away from him. Friends there had retired, moved away, or died. He still could not get over the long ago cancellation of Members' Council and its later iterations. Isolation in the pandemic years did not help. He felt conflicted and shared his sense of alienation with close friends. He loved the Art Center, but he also loved the University of Iowa, where he had earned his undergraduate, graduate, and dentistry degrees. The university hospitals, where he went every week for his cancer treatments, were prolonging his life. The University Art Museum, which had been flooded out and closed for many years, was about to reopen in a spectacular new building renamed the Stanley Museum of Art. The University of Iowa was courting him in evidence. Sorting it out, he considered his prints' future lives and the learning and inspiration that audiences would derive from them. He divided up the collection according to each institution's written requests and needs. At the beginning of my talk, I showed a photo of the Palarin home, and throughout the talk, I've shown Dale's collection in his home. Now, many of these works are at the Moines Art Center. I hope you will look closely at the prints in the exhibition. There's nothing like seeing the actual objects. Dale's very last print acquisition was a gift from me. On February 14th, 2024, I went to see him in the hospital. I brought to this Iowa boy an Iowa Valentine, a little engraving that I had made years before and delicately watercolored. I did not realize it was the last time I would see him. Later that day, or maybe the next, our friend Paula Hutton McKinley went to see Dale at the hospital. He showed her my little print and someone took a photo. I don't know what became of that print. Perhaps someone in his family kept it. I would like to end my talk with the well-known lines from Act 5, Scene 2 of William Shakespeare's Hamlet. You all know these words and are welcome to recite them with me. Now cracks a noble heart. Good night, sweet prince, and flights of angels sing thee to thy rest. Thank you.
All right, Amy, you know how to give a good talk. That was really good. So excuse me for a second. Would anyone like to start off with a question for Amy? There always are questions, and I'll gather myself to speak. Something that came to mind when I was listening to your beautiful talk and thinking about Dale was, this is not essentially like a very good question, but did he talk about things that got away? Like, oh, I wish I had bought that then. Can you remember anything like that?
Well, I know he was always looking for the Diebenkorns, for sure. I'd like to invite some of his other pals here, maybe Darren. If anybody can answer a question, do chime in too. So that's what I think it was the Diebenkorns was the hunt.
All right, here we have something.
Yeah.
I think Dale was unusual in that he had so few regrets in his life. He just took everything a day at a time, moved on, and I don't think he had many regrets.
Dale's brother, Kurt, will be back here June 26th, and I'll find out what happened to your
thank you. For you. Thank you. It would be good to see him again. Have I left you speechless?
Well, if you noticed, when I was working with Amy on the talk, she showed just partial images of several of the prints. And of course, with Amy, that was very intentional. So when we do go upstairs, that's a real invitation to go and look at the prints. Amy, do you want to speak a little bit more about that?
There are a lot of things, and obviously, I want you to look at the entire images too. But many of these prints are very complicated. They're not just straightforward, woodcuts or etchings. Others of them are. But just in preparing this talk, which I had to do mostly from photography because I was out of the country, it was so important for me to come back and look. And because there are things you absolutely do not see. For example, that Ellsworth Kelly green. The label says lithography and embossment. Go look for the embossment on that print. But there is this whole little language of how artists sign, how they number, and it could be almost too fidgety, too fussy to get involved in that minutia. Maybe that's just stuff for hardcore collectors and curators to be interested in. But it does reflect this evolution that took place in this period when things became more standardized. And so, yeah.
I just wanted to ask if you could talk a little bit about why you think Dale chose to focus pretty much solely on prints. There are a few other types of things, but obviously prints are an affordable way into art collecting,
Yes.
but it seems like it was actually so much more than that too. As a print curator and specialist yourself, I've really enjoyed the sense of sort of, there's like a magic to prints. There's something special about prints that sets them apart from, not to be a medium specialist, but I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit about, it seems like there's a love affair with prints, both clearly with yourself, but also with Dale. And I'm curious if you ever, I wonder if he sort of caught your love for them, or what was his, why specialized in prints?
Well, it was really, what can I say, in the air, for one thing. But I think he was interested in process, and you can focus on process. And the fact is that with editioned works, there becomes a community. It's not that you just own one single thing. There is, just this world of sharing that. And I think that Dale was so much about community too, and process, and somehow with printmaking and the evolution that was taking place at this time, there was constant learning to be done. He had amazing curiosity. He probably attended more print club, events and artists' studio visits than anybody. And there was like a bottomless well, and it wasn't just one thing you learn it, but that you could go deeply into it forever. And then there were good people. I mean, there were good people, and the affordability was very important as well.
And if I may introduce Ashton, this is the curator of the exhibition. This is Ashton over here asking a question. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, coming up.
Hi, Amy. It was a great presentation. I was intrigued with him coming from Manning, Iowa, a farm kid. Grew up on a cattle ranch, is that right, or a cattle farm? Did he have any, did he have any artistic impact on his hometown of Manning? I've not been out there to be familiar with that at all. And did the people of Manning have any idea of what a substantial collector and philanthropist he became?
I don't know that, but it sounds like your next column. Here's one thing you'll be amused by. One time Ragbri came through. Oh, sure. So one time Ragbri came through Manning, and Dale told me where his mother's house was because it was still there. And so I remember being sure to bike right past to see the house, But I am not aware of that. And again, I would appreciate anybody who could respond to that. Yeah. If you can respond to Chuck's question.
So I'm from Manning.
Okay.
My dad is cousins with Dale. But I will say, I don't think so. It's about a town of 1,000. It's not very big, but I don't know if you are all familiar with the Bernier Museum at Iowa State. Henry and Ann Bernier were from Manning,
Sure.
Iowa.
Oh.
Mhm.
I never made that connection. That's really interesting. Just to repeat that, the Bernier Art Museum at Iowa State was founded by a couple who it's named after. They were also from Manning. Thank you I'm really interested to know that. Thank you.
And then we'll go in the middle and then back up.
Yeah, I'm also from Manning, and
Wow.
I don't think Manning was aware of him at all.
Mhm. But he would go back there. It wasn't like he fled. He would.
I'm 10 years younger than him, and when I was there was no, I left Manning after high school, so it's perhaps after that he came back and people were aware of him. But when I was there and the times I've gone back, there was never any talk about him.
Interesting. Thank
We
you.
are also from Manning.
This is great.
This is my friend Jean. My name is Donna, Jean, and his sister Marilyn. We were all in the same class. We were best friends in high school. The other cool thing is Dale's mother and my mother were best friends in high school, and our grandmothers were neighbors and best friends. Manning is a very small town, but it has the biggest heart you've ever seen. They've had Children's Day, we used to call it, for 100 and some years. Now they call it Kinderfest, but to us old people, it's still Children's Day. But the Jansen family was wonderful. Like all the people in Manning, they have a heart for helping each other. If somebody needs the crop finished, if there was a death in the family, you wouldn't believe the amount of neighbors that show up.
Thank you. I
think in conclusion, then we have an announcement from Print Club, and then I'll invite everyone to join us upstairs. So, Amy, once again, thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Tauber, and I'm the current chair of Print Club. I first want to thank Amy for her wonderful talk. Second, I want to thank all of you for coming today. I did not know Dale for as long as many of you, but I knew him long enough to recognize what a welcoming, kind, and curious person he was. Dale was one of the founders of Print Club and remained a vital member until the end. Print Club is the Art Center's only membership group. Its mission is to help build the Art Center's print collection, to help build members' private collections, and to educate members about various aspects of printmaking. Print Club holds 5 events a year. The next 2 events are a lithography workshop with Tamarin-trained master lithographer Asa Fisher. That event will take place on July 12th. The other event is the unveiling of the Dwayne Slick commission print. That event will take place on August 14th. Dale was a beloved member of the Art Center and Print Club community. Thanks to your generous donations in his memory, Print Club was able to purchase a series of etchings by the Pakistani-American artist Huma Baba called the Unsubs. After the purchase, Print Club donated the prints to the Art Center in Dale's honor. The series was carefully chosen by committee members Ellen Yee, Kay Dries, and Catherine Locke. They felt the prints fit Dale's interest in work which was adventurous and daring in both subject and technique. Print Club is hosting a reception up in the lobby, and everyone is invited to join us there to celebrate and remember Dale. There's food, the available commission prints are on view, and you can buy a drink, purchase a commission print, or join Print Club in the Art Center shop. Once again, Thank you for your support of Dale.